I will introduce Antonio. I'd like to welcome to the stage Antonio Piazza, who's going to present Careful Who You Collab With, Abusing Google Colaboratory. Antonio Piazza, hailing from Cleveland, Ohio, USA, is a Purple Team leader and offensive security engineer at NVIDIA. Following his stint as a U.S. Army human intelligence collector, you and I should talk after your talk. He worked as a defense contractor operator on an NSA red team. So he's intimately familiar with spies, hacking, and nerd stuff. Antonio is passionate about all things related to Mac OS security and hacking, thus spends his days researching Mac OS internals and security, as well as writing free open source red team tools for use in the defense against the dark arts. Oh, that sounds cool. As of late, he has been planning to implement machine learning into red teaming with his NVIDIA colleagues. So please welcome Antonio. Sorry, I have to give you access, I guess. Let me do that real quick. Oh, I see. Sorry. I was looking for your name and not your handle. There we go. Okay, you have access.
All right.
So make sure to pick up a microphone to get megaphone access.
Why wouldn't let me pick it up?
Just point your pointer at one of the microphones, and it'll change from a circle to a funny looking icon, and then left click, it'll pick it up. Or is that right? Left click, right click.
Oh, it's not.
Yeah.
I don't know why my icon's not changing.
He has megaphone enabled, so he's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
We can learn how to use these controls. That'd be wonderful. Okay. Thanks, everyone. I really appreciate you coming and listening to this. Can everyone hear me okay before I start going on? This is my first formal doing anything in VR, so hopefully it goes well. I'm going to be looking at my slides a lot, so yell at me if something happens. So anyway, when I started this research, I was toying around with the idea of creating a startup that would provide a service to artists that would allow them to gain inspiration through AI. That was kind of the premise of the startup idea I had. And I wanted to start with music because that's where my passion is. The idea is that a musician who needs inspiration for writing their next song could submit some samples of their music or of songs from which they wish to emulate or they gain inspiration from. And the AI would then throw together a bunch of riffs similar to, but not the same as the style that the user submitted. I started using Google Collaborator and getting involved in the AI art music community, including the DataBots Discord channel, and reading white papers concerning sample RNN. Not having a great GPU on my own computer at the time, they were super expensive and hard to get. Not anymore, thanks to me working at NVIDIA. Some AI researchers in the community directed me to Google Colaboratory. So I started playing with it and found it to be a great tool for AI collaboration, and you get a free GPU, which is really nice. So this research didn't start with anything to do with security. Next slide, please. Then a researcher in the DataBots Discord who was involved in another project called OpenAI Jukebox. This platform allows a user to train the AI by feeding it a song or whatever written lyrics the user wishes, and the AI will give you in return a song where the artist sings the lyrics you provide. So I was playing around and trying to get Elvis to sing the lyrics of Sir Mix-a-Lot's "Baby Got Back" in the style of Suspicious Minds. Next slide, please. And a researcher, Broccolou, from the AI Jukebox Research Project helped me out by tweaking some of the configurations in my Google Colab file, which he shared with me via this Discord message. I opened the file in Colab as normal, and again as normal, I began the process of mounting my Google Drive in Colab. And this is when it hit me. When I mounted my Google Drive, this prompt came up on the screen, and it said, I don't know if you can read it, but it says, this notebook is requesting access to your Google Drive files. Granting access to Google Drive will permit code executed in the notebook to modify files in your Google Drive. Make sure to review notebook code prior to allowing the access. And that's where security research began for this. So next slide, please. And again, the talk is titled, Careful Who You Collab With, Abusing Google Colaboratory. Next slide, please. And I am Antonio Piazza. I go by Antman1P on the Twitters. I'm an offensive security engineer. Most of my security experience is strictly red teaming. I've worked at Zoom, Box, the Cleveland Clinic, on an NSA red team as a defense contractor. And now I am the purple team leader at NVIDIA on the threat operations team. And that Odin logo down there, some stickers. If you're here at DefCon, I'm here. I'll be down in the AI Village after this talk, and I'll hand them out if you want some. I'm also in my final course of the Masters of Science in Information Security Engineering program at SANS Technology Institute. I'm a father of 5, a husband, and again, I love music. Next slide, please. So the agenda here, it's pretty brief. We're going to discuss what Google Colaboratory is, because I'm sure some of you don't know. Some of you might be familiar. We're going to talk about how we can abuse Google Colab, and then we're just going to kind of conclude. Next slide, please. So what is Google Colaboratory? I'll let Google define it because I think they best describe it in detail. Colaboratory, or Colab for short, is a product from Google Research. Colab allows anybody to write and execute arbitrary Python code through the browser, and is especially well suited to machine learning, data analysts, and education. More technically, Colab is a hosted Jupyter Notebook service that requires no setup to use, while providing access free of charge to computing resources, including GPUs. Colab resources are not guaranteed and not unlimited, and the usage limits sometimes fluctuate. So you actually, if you're interested in having reliable access and better resources, you could purchase Colab Pro, which is I think about $50 a month. What is the difference between Jupyter and Colab? Jupyter is an open source project in which Colab is based. Colab allows you to use and share Jupyter notebooks with others without having to download and install or run anything. So that's the example I gave of Broccolou sharing a Colab file with me. He was actually sharing a Jupyter notebook file. Next slide, please. How is Colab normally used? You can write your own notebooks, which are stored in your Google account, Google Drive. Basically, you write Python code in a Jupyter Notebook cell, and you execute the cells by pushing the execute button. When you open or start a notebook, you connect it to a Colab runtime, and that's where you get your GPU and other resources, and they start spin up and start running. And you also may connect your notebook to your Google Drive. So in the slide here, the picture, I got arrows from a Jupyter cell, and you can see the little black play button, which is how you run a cell. And then on the upper right-hand corner, just showing you your resources usage for your runtime. Next slide, please. How is Colab normally used? Kind of continuing, you can import Python libraries just as you could normally do in Python. You can install dependencies with pip, and you can clone Git repos all into these Jupyter Notebook cells. Next slide, please. You also have a Colab terminal. So once connected to the Colab runtime, you have a terminal that you can use to run shell commands. And once connected to the drive, you can navigate the connected Google Drive file system. Question, where is my code executed? What happens to my execution state if I close the browser window? The code is executed in a virtual machine private to your account. Virtual machines are deleted when idle for a while and have a minimum lifetime enforced by the Colab service. I haven't sat and tried to figure out what that time is, but that's something I'll probably do in the future. It seems to last a while as long as you're active. Next slide, please. Finally, I want to touch on system aliases. So Jupyter has a number of system aliases, or basically command shortcuts to common operations such as ls, cat, ps, kill, so just your normal, Nix built-in commands. You can execute these from the Jupyter Notebook cell by adding the bang, or the exclamation point before the command. So bang ls will run the ls command. Next slide, please. All right, so how is this abusable? Well, let's recap. If I'm an adversary and I share a Colab file with someone, a Jupyter Notebook with someone, if they choose to use my file, they must mount their Google Drive and execute it. So that's key, right? They would be executing the malicious code I sent them. The adversary could potentially access all of the contents of a victim's Google Drive and exfiltrate anything they choose at that point. The adversary can edit the victim's Colab files to create backdoors that might also exploit other users that the victim collaborates with. Can have a reverse shell on a Colab virtual machine in the runtime we're talking about. Is there a possibility to do a VM escape? It's maybe. All this could be as simple as sending a phishing email with a link to a malicious Colab file, or sending a link to a malicious Colab file in an AI community Discord server, just like, the ones I hang out in, and kind of the way that Broccoli shared the file with me. Now, I got to say, the one he shared with me was not malicious, by the way. I scared him when he saw these slides. He thought, like, oh my God, did I send you something malicious? I'm like, no, that just got my brain working like an adversary. So you can hide malicious code in Jupyter cells. You can hide it in Git repos, since you can clone Git repos into your Jupyter Notebook. So there's a number of ways. Next slide, please. So for a clear understanding of what an attacker might have access to, if they successfully gain access to a victim's Colab runtime or their Google Drive, here are the permissions that one grants when mounting a Google Drive for a Colab session. If you're having a hard time seeing these, I can read them real quick, but it's like see, edit, create, delete all of your Google Drive files, view the photos, videos, albums in your Google Photos, retrieve mobile client configuration and experimentation, view Google people information such as profiles and contacts. So basically all the contacts you have in your Google account, including your phone or your Gmail. See, edit, create, and delete any of your Google Drive documents. Next slide, please. To see what an attacker might do, we can take a look at MITRE Atlas. Atlas stands for Adversarial Threat Landscape for Artificial Intelligence Systems. It's a knowledge base of adversary tactics, techniques, and case studies in learning systems based on real-world observations, demonstrations from machine learning red teams and security groups, and the state of what's possible from academic research. Atlas is basically modified after the MITRE attack framework, which people are commonly more familiar with, and its tactics and techniques are complementary to those in MITRE attacks. So how can an attacker do this? Well, for initial access, we discussed phishing the AI community or ML research community via email or Discord servers, MITRE Atlas has an machine learning supply chain compromise technique under the initial access tactic that might make sense. So maybe we can add a sub technique there for Jupyter Notebook sharing. Also, user execution under the execution tactic. So an attacker might hide a backdoor in a Jupyter cell, or maybe hide a backdoor in a Git repo that the notebook clones. Next slide, please. This is an example here of hiding malicious code in Jupyter Notebook cells. Here is code that on the left that will give an adversary access to the victim's Google Drive. While an adversary shared this notebook, a victim might easily recognize that this is not AI ML. This one on the left is just all, for getting for an adversary getting access to Google Drive. But some of the AI and ML notebooks are quite large, as you can see on the right. That's not even the whole thing, and I zoomed out as far as possible to take that screenshot. An adversary might be able to hide the malicious bits within normal, machine learning code. So the image on the right is just one small piece from a Colab project with an AI community member that an AI community member shared with me. And nothing malicious in there, just an example of how much code there is that an adversary could hide malicious cells or malicious code in. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is the example of the malicious code by the numbers, right? So imagine you receive a link to a Colab file and you open it. If you run all of this, you will give the sender access to all your files in your Google Drive via ngrok. So the first thing you do in the code is, the victim's going to mount their Google Drive. And again, this is normal behavior for all Colab files, right? Like in order to kind of persist and store, the data created from running one of these, you have to store it somewhere. And when you're in the cloud, you're going to mount where you're going to store it. The next step, you're going to wget ngrok tarball and untar it. The third step is you're going to you register your attacker ngrok API key. So it's a bit dangerous for an attacker to, I guess, hard code an API key, but an attacker can always change it when they're done pillaging, or if they're unsuccessful with the attack. So it's not too bad. Step 4 is start a Python server on a specified port, so like 9999 in this case, and then run ngrok on the same port in step 5. Next slide, please. So this is a video demo. I don't know. Were you able to run the videos from this presentation? I don't know if that problem was solved or. I don't know if anybody can hear me.
Should be running right now.
Oh, it's running. Okay, I can't see it, but I'll just go ahead. So, the victim again will run the Colab file, mount their drive, so you can see. But off screen, I'm picking my Gmail account and allowing the drive access, as I showed in the image earlier. And now I could navigate the file system on the left if I wanted. So installing Python requests, don't really need it here, but I want to show how you can use pip if needed. I do a pwd to show the content or the correct location of the Google Drive file system. And then I curl ifconfig.me to show my Colab VM IP address, wget to download ngrok, tar to untar ngrok, run ngrok, config to add my API key, run the Python server to serve the Google Drive root directory, run ngrok, and then on the attacker side, the attacker goes to the ngrok agents. Is there a way to like tilt my view so I can look up and see the slides? I'm like looking down.
Yes, move your mouse forward.
Oh, there it is. Okay. Oh, did something go wrong? Or? Oh, no.
No,
okay.
that's just video. Do you need me to rewind it any bit or no?
No, you're okay. I think I'll just kind of. So on the attacker side, the attacker goes to Grok agents, and you might have saw there the IP address of the agent matched what I got from the curling of iconfig.me, and then we're in, so we can navigate the Google Drive system and download whatever we want from the victim. So that what you're seeing there is kind of like a in-browser representation of the victim's Google Drive. Next slide, please. Okay, so that was the example of being able to get into a victim's Google Drive, and this one is a reverse shell example. It's two simple steps for this one. So basically, mount the victim Google Drive, and then do a bash TCP reverse shell to the adversary C2 server IP address. And I didn't show a video for this because it's just so simple, but you get the idea. It's of what a reverse shell is going to look like. Next slide, please. Okay, so knowing all this, what is the problem? So lately, GPUs are a little harder to find due to supply chain issues. They're pretty expensive. Where Colab is free and even Pro is cheap. AI and ML researchers are starting to use Colab more, especially education sectors and universities are using something similar like these cloud-based Jupyter Notebook runtime environments. And researchers are collaborating and sharing, right? This is a pretty exciting time. We're able to, someone like me who's not super schooled in AI and ML can get their start because there's just so many cool, so much cool research going on there, and people are willing to share it, and you get to learn how to do all the crazy cool AI stuff. Where I think the problem comes in is that most AI and ML researchers and developers are not security experts, right? So it's kind of like at the beginning of software engineering, like nobody's really thinking about security. It took a while for that to change, and we're kind of back like at square one with that, I think, with AI and ML researchers. The good news is security has been, around for a while, and we kind of saw the mistakes from that were being made at the beginning, with software engineering. So hopefully we can quickly jump in and start, securing things in the machine learning and AI sector. So, and finally, phishing is easy, right? Like, been on a lot of red teams, and it's a numbers game. If I send out 100 fish, I know I'm going to get at least one. As long as they all make it through, your email filtering, and that's never really been a problem. So, and it's scary. How can we fix it? Well, ML researchers and people who are collaborating should read the code someone shares with them. Let that Google Drive mount warning remind you every time, like, oh, before I mount this, let me look through and make sure this code is it's good and it's what I was expecting and nothing weird in there. And I know that's difficult because, again, in that example, code that could be in one of these notebooks, it might be difficult to find those needle in a haystack, and especially if the researcher doesn't know what to look for. So that's one thing I think as security experts we should probably start doing is educating machine learning and AI researchers in what bad looks like, right? So this is me hopefully getting something out to the security community, and hopefully this will spread from the security community into the ML research and AI community, and we'll start using your expertise to educate those folks on what bad looks like. So then they can search for that in their notebooks. Develop a code sharing plugin, in Google Drive. Maybe Google can do that, or the open source community can do that. Next slide, please. With that, thanks again. This is really cool, doing something for the first time in VR. Hopefully it went smoothly for everyone else. And again, I hope you got something out of this. And please feel free to ask any questions. I know I'm probably out of time here, but hopefully I can answer some questions.
Do you think this problem should be fixed by Google, or do you think it should be on the user basically to kind of watch themselves to make sure they don't download any malicious code?
It's funny because I've heard that question before. Basically, is this a problem that the users need to solve? Well, absolutely, but if you think about it, security education has been trying to push the responsibility on the user, which ultimately it is in the end. But like, is that working? Like, our users listening, and especially if you're securing an enterprise or a corporate network or something, like, we would hope all the users would do due diligence, but it just never turns out that way, right? Like, I would love if every person would be super vigilant when opening an email and not clicking on a link, right? But it just never happens. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's always a end user responsibility, but ultimately, I think we have to do our part as well as security experts. Should Google do anything? My opinion, they should have more than just that warning. But I've submitted several things to Google. I don't know. I don't try to pick on Google, but I use Google a lot, so I end up finding things. I've submitted things, and they're just like, "Oh, that works as normal," and I'm like, "That doesn't seem like great security practice." But no, that's the response. So I don't have an expectation that Google will do anything. I wish they would, but I think ultimately we're going to have to rely on the open source community to develop some plugins or again, help educate people. Next slide, please. I actually have one more slide. Sometimes it's not really a question, but people want to hear the Baby Got Back thing with Elvis. I can play it if you want to. Hopefully we can play it. Yeah, go ahead. Well, I don't know if that went as smoothly as I hope, but it's a work in progress, but it gets pretty crazy when at the end the AI starts singing in some alien language. It reminds me of the show Devs, when they had the background weird noise of the quantum computer speaking. It's kind of spooky. But anyway, any other questions? All right. Well, thanks a lot. Again, I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Antonio, for your presentation. Have to be careful, I guess, who we collab with from here on out. I never thought of that Jupyter Notebooks being used in that way. That's quite clever.